Welcome, welcome. Keeping it real, it ain't easy being me. A little Tupac, little theme music for us. Yes, this is the Sourceseeker Hour. I'm your host, Barutti Carl Alexander, and yes, this is the Sourceseeker Hour on Afro Vibes Radio, the #1 internet station in the world, and we're back to give you profound discussion and intellectual information. I'm your host, Barutti Carl Alexander, and yes, I'm the Source Seeker. A Source Seeker seeks to connect with the divine spark within him or herself and seeks to shine that bright light from a lampstand and to use that bright light to brighten a better tomorrow. And yes, we're here back with one of our main topics, one of the most interesting topics that we've had, one of the most current event topics, sexual harassment. We have one of our previous guests, Miss Pamela Ballard Hicks, a retired police sergeant, current teacher in the HISD, and Miss Sheba. Sheba, give me your full name.
Sheba Amenratatep.
That's why I wanted to make sure I asked you so I wouldn't mess it up myself.
Okay.
Yes. So, we're going to talk about sexual harassment. It's such an important issue. Basically, we're talking about relationships. When relationships get bad or start going in a bad direction. Sexual harassment is just one aspect. There's so many different aspects of relationships between men and women. Last time we talked about domestic violence. We talked about, again, sexual harassment. Then we talked about, are some men falsely accused? We're going to cover those issues again here on the Sourceseeker Hour on Afro Vibes Radio, the #1 internet station in the world. And yes, I'm your host, Barutti Carl Alexander. And this is going to be an interesting discussion. These ladies have a lot of information and so forth. And I'm just going to kind of sit back and listen. I'm only kind of cut in if we go left, but pretty much everything I believe is going to be straightforward. But I am going to represent the men in this particular discussion, and we're going to see whether we can get some resolution in this discussion of sexual harassment, sexual relationships, and are some men being falsely accused and so forth. So we plan to have a great show, a great discussion here on Afro Vibes Radio, the #1 internet station in the world. And I would like to start talking about the same question I started asking last time. For men, for some women, truth, honesty, those are the biggest things. I was just writing an article that said what you feed, if you feed deception and lies in your relationship, you certainly are not going to have a fulfilling relationship. But if you can be reconciled in truth, it will enhance your relationship. Do each of you ladies agree with that?
I agree.
Okay, well, I guess either side starts with lies. Like one time I heard a lady, she was upset at her man. He was staying with her, and he was paying half the bills that she told him that she had. She told him she had $1,200. That was the rent. But, he got a little suspicious, and he opened the mail and found out the rent was only $400. And so she was upset. She was just a cussing and upset, first of all, because he opened her mail, and then because he said, he started being a little bit unhappy about, the whole situation. But, she was cussing and being upset with him. So I just don't know how that we can ever get to a situation of having fulfilling relationships if we can't start with truth. Do you all have any comment on that particular side of things?
So far as her lying about how much he should pay, I see that happen a lot. And she probably did that because if she had just been straightforward with him, he probably wouldn't have gave her as much money as what she would have asked for.
But he wasn't supposed to give her as much if that wasn't what was needed. It's like he didn't need his money to do the things that he needed to do. I mean, that type of deception destroys. So, I mean, and then for her to be upset with him, she, in my opinion, should have been glad that he just even wanted to still work with her, because if you start in a deception like that, then the deception can continue and can continue. What you're doing is you taking away my money so I can have a satisfying life, so that you can have more money. Just, you know, you taking away from what you need just to get some extra money for yourself, and taking away from my having money to satisfy myself. And I call that a whole breach of trust. So I don't know, but you know, men and women look at things a little differently. And I mean, that would have been a basis for a real difficult situation. Just like this, there are a lot of women that have higher paying salaries than their spouse, but they want him to pay all the bills. Well, I mean, what's up with that?
That's only natural.
What? Oh, wow. Why?
That's the way that I was brought up, is that a man's money is the whole family's money, and your money is your money. And that's all there is to it.
First of all, that is not all there is to it. Second of all, that's not fair. I mean, in this day and age, where, and in my opinion, you know, we both sides have difficulties. You know, the black man has a lot of difficulty being able to make sure everything is taken care of. He has a lot of responsibility. He's expected to, you know, stand up against all kind of things, all kinds of oppressions and so forth, and still make ends meet and everything. I mean, I believe the lady, being a powerful partner, would recognize that and would work to meet him halfway. Yes, ma'am.
Well, can I?
Yes, ma'am.
You stated something earlier about the dishonest woman, and that she, although the rent was, I don't know, $800, and she was told it was $12. I have a problem with dishonesty, even if the situation was reversed, where I would tell, or my husband would tell me that the rent or the mortgage was that. I would see, and that's a red flag for me.
Me too.
I mean, what else are you lying about?
But I think it's equally just as bad. Now, it may not come out as a lie for the woman to make more money and then want the man to pay.
Well,
I mean, pay the rent. Now, I mean, why?
Well, that's not how I grew up. You know, it's not so much 50-50, because, you know, that's no. But it's definitely, I don't expect that the man pay most of the rent, but I expect him to hold his part. I mean, and we're in a relationship where we both give and receive. So what I'm trying to say is basically, no, because he makes more money, I don't expect him to pay all the bills. We work together, and we're going to build together. And that's how this relationship is going to stand. I mean, until we stop building together and putting our efforts into this relationship, as far as financial, as well as everything else, support and encouragement. So once that stops, or somebody says, well, you know, you sit back and let me, you know, step forward. This day and age, when you just have, my husband said one thing when we were, and I had to bring this too, because when we were, had, what do you call it, premarital counseling, and the pastor asked him, he said, Jonathan, do you have any problems with Pamela achieving the goals she set out for herself? He said, Pamela can be whatever she wants, except unemployed. And that, you know, we had already discussed that. He said that, you know, his mother raised 9 children, and he said, you know, the father died when he was 7. So he said, you know, I grew up poor. He said, I'm willing to work and do the housework and do whatever it is for us to have a good living, a nice life.
As far as that, since I know JP, and I know he's a good man, every brother is not like a JP though. We talking about those brothers that's not like a JP. So there are going to be brothers that, you know, struggle between jobs and so forth, and they are under a lot of stress. And if you just look, downtown by the church downtown, if you've ever been there, there are multitudes of tents, and 90% of those people are black men down there, and so forth. And like I tell my son, who's 19, I say, they are not just looking to become a tent resident when they grow up. That's not what they look forward to. So how did that happen, and could it happen to somebody else? Could it happen to you?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and this is based on my experience in law enforcement, a lot of it happened with mental illness.
Yeah.
Mental illness plays a big part in that. In addition to mental illness, drug use.
Mm-hmm.
And mental illness, we always look at it as, it's either crazy, it's that bell curve where it's progressive. It just can happen here. I mean, it can be a little spot here where depression, then it goes into, breakdown when you're in the middle. Then it just...
Basically, are you saying that it could be a progressive ascent or a slide, and it's not just something that happens overnight?
Correct.
Yes.
I believe.
Yes. All of these factors factor into relationships. And we're going to get to our subject of sexual harassment in this day and age, I'm going to talk about the president and the difficulty that he's having. And I wonder what he has been doing. Would that be considered sexual harassment, or would that be considered having a sugar daddy? For those, he comes up to somebody before he was elected, and he's Donald Trump, and some ladies, they see lights, they see dollar signs, just like with Harvey Weinstein. They see all of those particular things, and what I would submit to you, they knew what they were getting into. Let me finish. They knew what they were getting into, and when they did not get what they wanted, that's when charges started. That's when charges started. Sheba, what do you say about that?
I agree with that. It's true.
Yeah. Well, I really ain't got nothing else to say, because if she says that is true, but most women, if it happens anywhere around their circle, they're not going to admit it. And then, a lot of men, before I take any sides or anything, let me make sure I say, men can be equally deceiving, they can be equally transgressive and mess up just as much. But in this day and age, so can women. And in my opinion, and a lot of the accusations that are out there now, I would say half of them are questionable. Did you all hear that one of the accusers of Bill Cosby has recanted her story?
No.
Did you all hear that?
No.
Yes.
Maybe she was paid to recant her story.
Maybe she was paid to make the story up in the first place.
Got paid twice,
That's
right?
true.
Okay, I remember last time when we was on the show, there was, I believe yourself or the other guests, they mentioned that a lot of the charges against him started when he was trying to buy NBC. And so there's money around these things, but I go back to that thought process. When a lady comes up to a quote-unquote powerful man, or just a man that she think can give her an advantage, she knows pretty much what she's getting into. Like the situation of, I watched some of the situation with Tupac, with Mike Tyson. Both of those ladies went up there at 2 in the morning to the gentleman's room. Now, beyond the initial between the two parties, now if other people were involved and she was not down with that is, yes, that's right. Yes, that's total harassment. And if Bill Cosby gave anybody any kind of drink or any kind of mix, put it inside their drink, that is rape. That is harassment. That is terrible. I have 2 daughters. I would not want any of those things to happen to them. But I would also tell them, you don't go into a situation, in a compromising situation, and expect to play games. Expect to manipulate the situation in the way that you want to. I believe that in a lot of these situations dealing with sexual harassment, the women knew what they were getting into or what they were trying to achieve, and they maybe it didn't work out in that particular way, and then that's when the charges start. Certainly that's what Tavis Smiley has been saying. He said that it was consensual, they understood what was going on, but they did not get what they wanted, and now that's when the charges start out. You have some things that you want to talk about in your notes, Sheba, or what did you want to say?
So far as what sexual harassment is any unwelcome sexual advances, whether it's explicitly or implicitly. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be just straight out. A person just asking, again, insinuate things.
Give me an example of that.
So far as like if a woman wants a job and she's qualified, and the boss comes to her and say, well, you know, this job requires more than just beauty and talent. You have to do other things. I'm a man and I have needs, if you know what I mean. So that's like implying that he wants sexual favors. Now,
from that example, from what I understood about the Weinstein situation, several women wanted jobs. They wanted movie roles. He did not explicitly say, hey, you had to do this to get this role, but he invited them up to his place, you know, and those that kind of got the unsaid signs and kind of got with the program had a better chance of getting a role. Now, but again, they knew what they were getting into. Miss Pam, you got to comment about that. I mean, is that the way? Isn't that the fair way of the world? And there's too many people crying foul over what they already knew what the situation was.
I think we're trying to put this all in one bowl, and I think that's a big mistake.
Okay.
And you have to evaluate everything differently. If you're dealing with a college student or maybe a high school student, I think it may be some naivety in that. If she goes to this man's room, and you know, but you made a comment about why I talk to my girls even at this age. That's a really important thing. We got a male figure that's telling his daughters that this can occur. My father was very important in my life and who I am, how I speak, because he prepared me for the world as far as even just with money. He told me, I remember giving me 50 cents one time, and 2 weeks later he goes, well, at that time, at 50 cents you could buy 50 pieces of candy. And then about 2 weeks later he came to me and says, baby, how much money you have left? I don't have any, Daddy. I spend it. He said, well, you're not my daughter. I never spend my last. He did that probably another 2 times. And then one time he showed me, he says, I'm going to tell you something, I never spent my life. He had a folded dollar. This in the 70s, maybe early 70s. He showed me a folded $50 bill. See, I'm never broke. That taught me a valuable lesson about money and how never to spend, never live paycheck to paycheck, based on everything. He shot from the hip, and I got it. But I got that lesson from my dad.
That is one of the big problems I do, and I must say, with the dissolution of, in many ways of the black family, there are less men around to be able to assist, and then in some cases, women are at odds, men are at odds, they are at odds with each other, and there's not a good example there. And as our society breaks down, these type of things happen. And one thing I must talk about a little bit is, and I talked about this last time, men have needs, especially young boys. My son, 19. We have needs, and an immature boy does not necessarily know how to find a way to satisfy those needs or understand how to delay gratification. It's a very difficult thing to try to get over to him. And, you know, a lot of ways he's looking for an opportunity or mark. You know, the young boys start talking about conquest and so forth, not understanding the ramifications of being involved. You know, they just looking for conquest. They just looking to satisfy their needs. That's where a father, that's where a mother, all of those, that's where a guiding force comes in to understand it's more than just satisfying your needs and so forth. But, and these young girls, some of them could be 14 and looking like 20 and pushing themselves like a 20-year-old. I mean, in this day and age, we have had many female teachers that have gone to jail for harassment. Now, from the boy's perspective, he's not looking at it in the way that, you know, it's so devastating. You know, he's looking at it in the way that, you know, it is a conquest.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's something else in trying to figure all these particular things out, that we are trying to find our way to have a satisfying relationship. And can you all talk about the spiritual factor that may be involved in trying to have a satisfying relationship? Because if we can have satisfying relationships, then we don't have as much occurrence of sexual harassment. You want to talk about that, Sheba?
Could you explain more so I could understand?
Well, I'm talking about the spirit. The spirit is we all have urges.
Yes.
Boys have urges, girls have urges. A part of the young lady's urges, it is a sense of acceptance, belonging, love.
Right.
A boy has a sense, you know, a boy walking around at 17 is starting to...
Sense of sex?
Yes, what I was just going to start talking about is he has a hot fire burning in his soul.
Yes.
And that's the problem. Therein lies the problem with that hot fire, because...
I mean, but well, if you have a problem with the hot...
Yeah.
If you have a problem with the hot fire, you got to talk to God.
No, I guess I said that wrong. I'm not talking about a problem with the hot fire. The problem here is that, okay, in college, let's say you got, okay, there's 17, 18-year-olds. And now, or even in high school, and you go on a date, and a girl is probably, you know, kissing and leading you on, but at this point in time, you got that hot fire, and a girl naive. It's up to the father or someone to tell the son that, hey, at this point in time, it's when the girl says no, and I'm not interested, and it could be kissing, passionate, or whatever it is. You have to stop. You have to, because this can cost you your life. This can cost you a criminal record. This can put something on your criminal history that, you know, it just can affect you forever.
Well, the thing I want to say about that is, in dealing with the factor of sexual harassment and different things, sometimes the girl can say no and mean yes, but we don't, hold on, we don't know. We can only take a no as a no, and if the no is,
you need.
and if the no becomes a yes, you have to have patience and wait. Is that okay? Is that okay?
I don't like how you said that. I think a no means a no. I tell you, one thing about we should tell our boys, once she said no, there's a clear understanding. I wouldn't say no, then maybe yes. Because that means that I'm in doubt that I really want to do this. But I'm doing this for the sake of you because I care.
Okay, well, let me say this. When I say a no that's maybe a yes, She's saying no because she's uncomfortable in the situation she's in. She's saying no because maybe it hasn't been enough time, but you can still see in her eye that she really that she really likes you.
Of course she likes you. That's why she's there.
Yes. So
I like you.
So what I'm trying to get the young man to understand, no does not necessarily mean all the time no. But you got to develop a sense of delayed gratification and patience. And see, when you go beyond that, that's where these labels start happening. Sexual harassment, or even rape. Because you have to take your time. You have to take your patience. You have to develop those things as young men. Because if you don't, you are devolving into a sort of an animalistic state, and things can get very crazy in an animalistic state as a man. We're going to take a break right here on Afro Vibes Radio, the #1 internet station in the world. I'm the Sourceseeker, Barutti Carl Alexander, and this is the Sourceseeker Hour. We'll see you in a second. Bye. All right, guys. Yes, we're back now on Afro Vibes Radio, the #1 internet station in the world. And yes, I'm your host, Barutti Carl Alexander. And we're having our second show on sexual harassment. You can call it relationships. Because really that's what we're looking at. We're not so much want to just focus on the negative part. We want to focus on how can we have more satisfying relationships also. So we are talking a cross section of different things and dealing with relationships, and we talking about how boys have that hot fire in their soul, and girls, some girls come up with the mindset that their best possibility or what they're supposed to be looking forward to is marriage. Now, is that true? Is that what you were telling me, Sheba?
No, it's the boys and the girls where, when I grew up, we both were taught to go to college and to have our home. It's just that the boys were taught at a young age that what their responsibility was as being the head of household. And so far as sexual harassment, I never really had to go through that, and we really never heard of that because...
Can I ask what town you grew up in?
In Church Point, Louisiana.
Okay, so earlier you said that you were taught that the boys' money was the family's money and the girls' money was hers.
Yes, the girl was educated also, but that's just the way things were, is that the man was the head of household. And he didn't look for his wife to give him financial support or anything like that.
So did that work throughout your city pretty well?
Yes, it worked perfect.
Huh?
Perfect, yes, it worked perfectly. The women worked in peace and they had their extra money to do what they wanted to do with it. They didn't have to ask their husbands. He took care of all the bills. She took care of primarily of the children and worked too. And
well, that sounds something like a utopian situation. I don't know. Well, if the woman went along with the program and there was not too much conflict, I wouldn't mind paying the bills and so forth and making sure she had her money. But in this day and age, who would say that she doesn't she uses her money and goes out and find her a sugar daddy and a friend, you know?
Well, you have women nowadays that do that since everything has changed.
Yeah, I mean, so and the man would be bitter, and then there would be all kind of conflict and so forth. But if they both have some type of responsibility, he can say, well, I have mine over here, she has hers over here, and we can go on our merry kind of way. But when there's exploitation, that's where them hard feelings come in.
Yes.
That's where them hard feelings come in, when there's exploitation on either side. So now, you could have a relationship where, as long as you got an agreement between the two people, and he feels satisfied. I heard a friend of mine at work was telling me about a relationship that the man knows the woman goes out and has a boyfriend, but at the same time, she comes back. He has any kind of problem, she comforts him. She takes care of the kids. He takes care of the finances. She helps him because she takes care of that. Now, he's in agreement with that. Now, I don't know whether that can last forever, but if he's in agreement with that, I would tend to think if he loves her, that's going to be hard for him to maintain that. Maybe he's just maintaining it at the time because he doesn't want to lose her and be on his own.
I'm really wondering, does he really have income and is he really paying bills? Or is he just covertly pimping her?
Well, that wouldn't have come to my mind, but anything's possible. Anything's possible. But the key point is, if two people are in agreement on how their relationship is going to work, those are the only people that got to be in agreement. But where there becomes conflict, that's where those domestic violence, those hard feelings, those different things happen. And you being a retired police officer, you've seen the result of when it doesn't work.
You know, once the violence occurred, you know, then you involve the police.
Yeah.
And, you know, the worst thing I think that you can do is involve the police into your business, because then it escalates to another level.
Sometimes, in my, and I'm speaking from a little bit of personal experience, I should have gotten the legal people in my life a lot sooner. Because, you know, when it's out, what the other party kept saying was, you don't want to bring them folks in your life. You don't want to bring, but then they would take the cover of no legality to try to perpetrate all kinds of mischief and then lie about it. See, when you have the people in your life, you got documents, you got paperwork. Now, when it goes to, hold on, when you go to that level, you probably finished anyway.
Right.
So, since I should have went to that level much earlier, I was finished much earlier. But I held on a little bit too long. But that's a whole nother story. But I mean, every situation may be different. There are some similarities, but let me say this, for men, especially young men, if you having a conflict with this young lady, and the worst thing you can do is put your hands on. A lot of young brothers, they try to, you know, I'm masculine, I'm going to show you who I am, and so forth and so on. And, you know, a lot of times they end up in jail behind that, trying to show who they are and so forth. In that particular situation, for instance, what I heard about the situation of Chris Brown, and this is just hearsay, he was hit with a shoe in the face and the eye, and then he just went ballistic. Well, what he should have did was filed charges and said, leave me alone for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
And if he had done that, I bet you everything would have came out much better for him, and he might have, you know, he might have earned a girl that earned that girl because he went through the process and didn't just use that emotion in that particular way. Now, you said that was you thought that was a good situation. Come on in that further.
I always tell my son that if a girl makes him mad enough to want to hit her, just leave her alone for good.
Yes.
Leave it alone. Because like she said, that's the worst thing you can do is call the police. You could call them for one thing and it could escalate to something else very bad. So
that's true.
It's like,
that's true.
If you're that mad, please leave her alone.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And again, I say, if it gets to that level where you feel you got to do something, you're probably finished. And now, in my case, of course, I couldn't just be finished because I got kids. So I had to, you know, do something else. So you got a lot of situations like that too. So you just can't leave it alone. You have to be involved and so forth. But back to this issue of sexual harassment. What do you think about some of the more crazier ideals? For instance, we had a third-party candidate that promoted, his name was Gary Johnson, he promoted prostitution.
For it to be legal,
Yes,
might as well,
okay.
because people are doing it anyway.
I would think that would be and you know, there are a lot of other countries where it's legal. You know, in the United States, no. But in a lot of other countries, in Great Britain, you have a red light district. I believe the Netherlands has a big red light district. I would tend to think that would help some marriages. I would tend to think that would help some. I'm serious. You're laughing. Why are you laughing, Pam?
Well, just about that. You know what? You know, whether you show this or not, but when I worked for the police department, I did stings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know, when you're looking at me, you're looking at when I was 20, early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at a much smaller person.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about it, we said that prostitution is, even the ones that soliciting for
Mhm.
prostitutes,
Mm-hmm.
it's a victimless crime.
Mm-hmm.
There's no victim. But the reason that they gave us for actually patrolling was because, you know, it keeps down the criminal element, venereal disease, and, you know, I guess disgruntled patrons for whatever. But it was that you stop the small crime before it becomes big. So that was the way, but it is a victimless crimes. And whether we...
It can be. It can have crime involved too, if two parties, you know, get into a disagreement. But that just two parties get into a disagreement also.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's normally that's normal with any kind of business transaction. And that just happened to be if you didn't pay me what I think I'm worth.
Should have figured it out up front and y'all make an agreement.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's why it should be a legal business.
Mm.
To where you can take the women to the clinic or to the hospital, make sure she's clean, and check the clients out, and they can sign their papers and
So
disputes.
let me get this straight. I have two women that agree that prostitution should be legal. Is that
No.
it? No? I got one.
Yes, it should
I got
be
one?
because
Okay.
you do it anyway.
You're against it. Okay.
You know what? I understand it,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to see more data.
Okay.
You know, just to see. I just can't say yeah, I'm in.
Okay.
So I definitely.
But you're not a definite no. You're a maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are a lot of things that I think could enhance our society and make it less stressful. See, sexual harassment, it's a stress. You know, the young man or the person, they are in stress and trying to somewhat relieve their stress. That's what it comes down to. You know, and well, a person in power he's egotistical and trying to use his power, or he's just being a glutton. You know, at the same time, which happens also. Some people just be a glutton, you know, because they can, and but you have to have two to party in that. You have to have two to party. So the young ladies, going back to that little light that they're looking for an advantage. Yes.
You're assuming that it's just a simple, just a sexual encounter, and that's all. It may be a little bit more and a little bit more high stakes. So you don't know. Some men like
Such as.
or it's violence. You know, that may be a turn on. And that's one thing I saw the police, you know, even, I don't even want to go with pedophilia, but, you know, they can see a little child, a 7-year-old on the playground jumping up and down. And that's the sexual enjoyment or rise or, well, I don't want to go in that direction. What I'm saying is that,
I would say that's a totally different direction.
No, what I was saying
that's
that,
a sick direction.
Yeah, it is sick direction. What I was saying was, at this point, some men get gratification through some form of physical restraint, and that's
Okay.
part of it. So you're thinking just a mutual agreement and a mutual relationship, and then I just get tired of it, and then I want it, which I've seen time and time again, where they are engaged in a relationship with a supervisor or boss, and once it's done for me, it's over. But you're still trying to pursue me. Why?
Well, that's when one party says no more, and the other party has to say, okay, and if you go beyond that, then We talking about her.
That's the simple relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the simple, I guess, kind of sexual harassment that you're talking about,
Yes,
right?
yes. Well, we've covered a lot of particular areas. Pam, your experience as a retired police officer, you've seen a lot of things. HISD teacher, so forth. Sheba, you're an entrepreneur, so forth. You've seen a lot of particular things. How best do you believe that young men today should go about finding a satisfying relationship? Should they go to the grocery store? Should they just go to the movies? Should they, enroll in a class in school? What do you believe that where's the best place? Should church?
I think it starts at home and how the parents teach the children. We need morals, ethics, and values, and how we view ourselves and other women and people in general.
Well, as the society devolves, not everybody has a stable society, but you still have this young man that's trying to find his way and so forth. So,
but I think some of the old traditional ways of having the elders in the community, some people that we can go to talk to about certain things, that the young people can go and talk with them and consult with them and be honest with them, and they can probably help find them a mate at the age of 16, 17, 18, or whatever. Like, it used to be like proper courtship procedures.
So
well, you get the parents involved and the other person's parents involved, and they meet, the children meet. And
so
talk.
do you believe in arranged marriages?
To a certain degree. Because sometimes some people can have some so-called crazy genes in their family. They get together with another crazy person and you have crazy children.
And who would arrange this for you? The elders in your community?
I would say a combination of the parents, both people's parents and the elders. Like a community or a village raising a child.
I will say this, most women will not go along with an arranged marriage. In my opinion, I don't believe that be the case, because I think that's why we don't do it here in America, to have these arranged marriages, except for in a few small circles and so forth.
It's a lot of divorces anyway, so...
I agree. I don't think it would make it any worse. There's at least 50% of divorces and so forth, and both sides cause that, I would say. I'd go back to the 50-50 thing.
An arranged marriage probably would be good because they probably can grow to love one another and appreciate one another, and they'll probably stay together forever until they die.
Well, I just got to say good luck with that,
Well, I've seen some marriages like that.
Of course. I mean, historically, there's been a lot of marriages like that, but not necessarily in America.
Yes, in America, because I grew up around that time, to where the parents want to be talking like this.
Okay.
The parents wouldn't be. So I think that so-and-so make a good match for your young lady or your young man, this and that, and they get together and they talk and stuff, and they take them out on dates. Of course, they're chaperoned and everything, so nothing will happen. And they
You grew up in the country, huh?
Yes, it's a small town.
Okay, well, there we go. I'm just kidding. That would be great, though. I mean, to a certain extent, it would be great to a certain extent, but then you would have those that, want their individualism. They would want to be able to decide for themselves, and maybe
And that's where the trouble comes in.
Maybe you can have just across it. You can have a situation where they go out on their own. Maybe they don't get as much of their inheritance, but they can have a portion of it, and they decide for themselves and see how it comes out. Sometimes that's how things work out. You go back to the prodigal son. Prodigal son said, "Well, I don't want to go through the process with you," and he went out there and went on his own, and he was sleeping in the pigsty, and said, "Well, wait a minute, my dad got all of this stuff. Let me go back home and follow the rules. And thank you, Dad. Let me back in." And so, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different possibilities, and we're looking at a lot of different ways that we can find satisfying relationships. My kids are 19, 17, and 14, and I would love for them to have good prospects. First of all, they have to start with themselves, to build themselves, build their self-esteem, build a circle of self-esteem, and not go looking, but have someone come into their circle. That's what I would like to teach them. That's the principle I try to go by. But, you know, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard because, you know, this world gives you so many messages, subliminal and literal, overt, all different kinds of messages, clothing, what's the right color, what's the right right hair texture, so many different things that you are bombarded with on a daily basis that you have to be able to try to navigate against. And so it's a lot of pressure upon all people, but especially young people. And so it's something that we can talk about every week. We can talk about this subject every week because it's that important. Because if you can have a satisfying relationship that builds a satisfying family, which helps to build a satisfying community, which can grow to a satisfying country to live in. And so it's all a cyclical thing and so forth. So we are on Afro Vibes Radio, #1 internet station in the world. I'm your host, Barutti Carl Alexander, and we are finishing up the second discussion of sexual harassment. And I appreciate these young ladies joining me, Pam for the second time, Sheba for the first time. Sheba, please give us some information and tell us some of the other things that you do. This young lady does soaps and jewelry and different things. Tell us about those things.
I do handcrafted soaps. I do handcrafted jewelry. I paint. I draw. I illustrate. I edit. I had my own newsletter, Sleeping Giants newsletter. And I'm currently working on my book, Black Hillbilly Nation.
Whoa, that's going to be interesting. Black Hillbilly Nation. And where can people reach you? Online if they want to talk to you and talk some stuff.
They can reach me through you.
Or they can reach her through Facebook or something of that nature. Yes.
It's
Okay.
on Facebook at Sheba Amenratatep.
Sheba, what does Amenratatep mean?
Amen, praises, Ra, all praises to the university, Tep.
Okay.
Let it be, Amenratatep.
That sounds
Yes,
powerful.
thanking God for my name.
That sounds very powerful. I'm not going to go through my name right now. I'll tell y'all next time. Pam, tell us some of the things you're doing and how people can reach you, and if they want to argue with you, something they disagree with, they just say, I disagree with that, Pam. How can I tell you?
Well, one thing, I'm still a teacher at HISD, teaching elementary school, so, and, you know, I'm continuing to do that, try to encourage and develop in the young children. That's that's my passion, and that's what I care to do right now.
That's
Besides traveling, that's my other passion.
That is a great passion as a teacher who's looking to retire. That is a great passion to bring up and to assist our young students. And that travel, I heard that. I love that also, and so forth. I would like to do that. I got an article that I wrote, places I'd like to visit and see the hands of God. And I mentioned Egypt. I mentioned a lot of different places. You know, there's just many hundreds of places here in the United States. I just got back from Detroit. You know, saw a lot of things. I was hanging out in Motown. You might see my picture online and so forth. I was doing some music and so forth. But there's so much, and we talk about it here on the Sourceseeker Hour. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today, and keep looking at us online at the Sourceseeker Hour. Check out my books, my latest books, Obama the Extraterrestrial, Seeking the Heart and the Sword, and I do have an upcoming book that we will talk about as we get closer to the date of its release and so forth. Well, everybody, we enjoyed you. See us next time on the Sourceseeker Hour. I'm your host, Barutti Carl Alexander. Everybody have a great day, and we keep it real. Bye-bye, everybody.